I'm sorry?
Is it true that the EPA has never obtained formal legislation, authorization legislation from Congress? It's never been authorized by Congress.
EPA is not authorized by Congress?
I'm asking you.
I thought EPA was authorized by Congress.
Well, the EPA is not.
You're saying that...
I'm saying the Chevron Doctrine was overturned by the
we
Supreme Court.
We have no
all of
authority?
I'm saying you've never been authorized. Wait, hold on.
Congress doesn't delegate authority for us to do the regulations and the business and the policy. So since 1970...
So the Chevron Doctrine, where you have created all of these rules under that have been proven to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court has been overruled.
Spend so much time with our regional staff and regional administration and Region 8 and have such productive conversations about how we're doing things for your district and your state, and then you take this microphone and you
I've also seen the coal plants that have been decommissioned in my state.
But 100%, we should not
I've
exist.
seen the energy regulations.
Patriots, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into an absolutely explosive exchange from Congress that every American needs to see. Representative Lauren Boebert from Colorado just grilled EPA Administrator Michael Regan. And honestly, it's about time someone held these unelected bureaucrats to account. I've got a lot to say about this, so buckle up.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Regan, is it true that the EPA has never obtained formal authorization legislation from Congress?
I'm sorry?
Is it true that the EPA has never obtained formal legislation, authorization legislation from Congress? It's never been authorized by Congress.
EPA is not authorized by Congress?
I'm asking you.
I thought EPA was authorized by Congress.
Well, the EPA is not. The EPA has never been formally authorized by Congress. However, this agency has imposed over $1.3 trillion in regulatory costs since the Biden regime took office. We authorize committees here in Congress to ensure that we have proper oversight and accountability in the functioning of the executive branch. And this process is extremely vital because often we see agencies abuse the separation of powers, creating rules and laws, regulations without consent of Congress. And we appropriate funds to agencies like the EPA and expect these tax dollars and this tax dollar funding to be used in accordance with the legislative priorities and comply with the oversight requirements. So, Mr. Regan, last month, the Supreme Court rightly overturned the Chevron Doctrine, which the EPA relied on to support its very controversial and costly rulemakings. Since your agency has never been authorized by Congress and has since lost most legal standing, does your agency still plan to enable rogue bureaucrats to enact unconstitutional regulations?
I'm not quite sure I follow you. You're saying that...
I'm saying the Chevron Doctrine was overturned by the Supreme Court.
We have no authority?
I'm saying you've never been authorized. Wait, hold on.
Congress doesn't delegate authority for us to do the regulations and the business and the policy. So since 1970...
So the Chevron Doctrine, where you have created all of these rules under that have been proven to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court has been overruled. So now I'm asking, are your bureaucrats still going to implement these rulemaking processes?
You do know Chevron is not just focused on EPA. So,
but you are. So I'm asking about the EPA, and I'm asking about your rogue bureaucrats that have enacted these unconstitutional regulations. Are you going to repeal them? Are you going to continue to implement them, or are you going to stop altogether, since it's been overturned?
do you understand the ruling?
Do you understand the ruling of the Supreme Court?
I do, and so your question is ill-formed. No,
will you be repealing?
We're not going to stop.
So you're going to unconstitutionally continue with these
rulemakings. We're going to
adhere
adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to
so
do
which rulemakings are you going to roll back?
We're going to adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to do our work in accordance to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court.
So which ones are you going to repeal?
The Supreme Court didn't tell us to repeal anything.
They have been deemed unconstitutional.
No.
Absolutely, they have. This was a huge victory. And, you know, I mean, even in our appropriations bill in the House this year, the funding has been reduced by 20%. I would argue that it needs to be reduced by 100%. But in this, it's because of these radical Green New Deal policies that jeopardize domestic energy development and overload America's power grid and raise costs on American consumers and businesses. So with the EPA and these overreaching regulations, do you have any intent on working with the House majority to lower energy costs and produce more reliable and affordable energy?
If you look at our rule, we are producing reliable, affordable, diverse.
I think
energy
Americans' wallets would disagree with that. I mean, the Biden administration, if they continue under Obama's administrative policies, this regulatory pace for a full 8 years, the cumulative costs of this administration's rulemakings would exceed $60,000 per household. And as you know, the Biden administration reversed President Trump's successful deregulation by executive order. So the Biden regime is on pace of increasing regulatory costs at a rate of $617 billion per year in just rulemaking. Rulemaking that we are seeing is unconstitutional.
It's just shocking. You spend so much time with our regional staff and regional administration in Region 8 and have such productive conversations about how we're doing things for your district and your state, and then you take this microphone and you
I've also seen the coal plants that have been decommissioned in my state.
But 100% we should not
I've
exist.
seen the energy regulations that have regulated my district into poverty.
You're spending time with my staff.
So sure.
In your district.
Of course I am. I have oversight over your staff, and I want them to answer, and I want them to provide a service for the American people.
Complimenting them
but there
about
are
the
so much.
partnerships.
Yes, there are some things that have been done well, but
we
not
should be
everything.
100%
When we
removed?
have $617 billion per year in rulemaking, that is absolutely absurd. When you are taking our affordable, clean energy and regulating it out of existence and killing these good-paying jobs in my district, yes, I have a problem with that.
Sure. Yeah.
My time has expired, and I yield.
First off, let's talk about what everyone's thinking, but so few in Washington have the backbone to say. Has the EPA ever actually been formally authorized by Congress? Boebert asks the question straight up, and you can see Regan squirming. He tries to dance around it. But here's the truth. The EPA was created by an executive order in 1970, not by an explicit act of Congress. That means, right off the bat, we've got an agency with immense regulatory power, but no real, direct legislative check from we the people's representatives. And since then, the EPA has become a monster, imposing more than $1.3 trillion in regulatory costs since Biden took office alone. Trillion, with a T. That's not just keeping our water clean. That's government overreach on a scale our founders would have never accepted. Now, Boebert brings up the Chevron Doctrine. For those who don't follow legal battles, that's the doctrine the Supreme Court just struck down, which used to let agencies like the EPA make up the rules as they go along, even when Congress was vague or silent. Why is that a problem? Because it means unelected officials, people you and I can't vote out, were making decisions that affect every American's wallet and way of life. So when Boebert asks Regan, are you going to stop letting rogue bureaucrats enact unconstitutional regulations? She's speaking for millions of us who are sick of seeing our jobs, our energy, and our livelihoods sacrificed for ideological crusades. And Reagan's response? He dodges, obfuscates, and refuses to admit any wrongdoing. He says, we're going to adhere to the Supreme Court and continue to do our work. But let's be real, folks. The court just told you that you've been overstepping your authority, but you're going to keep doing what you're doing? That's not adherence. That's defiance. Boebert also drops some staggering numbers. $660,000 per household over 8 years in regulatory costs if Biden keeps up this pace. $617 billion a year in new rulemaking. That's not environmental protection. That's economic devastation. And you know who pays that price? It's not the bureaucrats in D.C. It's working Americans. It's coal miners in Colorado. It's oil and gas workers in Texas and North Dakota. It's farmers in the Midwest. These are good-paying jobs, American jobs, regulated into oblivion by people who have never spent a day in the real world. And just look at the arrogance. Reagan tries to act like he's working with local communities, But when Boebert calls out how his regulations are regulating her district into poverty, he just shrugs it off. That's how little these elites care. They'll tell you to learn to code or get a green job while they destroy entire industries. Let's be honest here. This isn't about clean air or water anymore. Who doesn't want that? This is about power. It's about control. It's about the radical Green New Deal agenda that's being shoved down our throats whether we like it or not. They want to kill American energy, make us dependent on China for solar panels and batteries, and lecture us about climate change while they jet around the world on our dime. Boebert is absolutely right. Congress should defund these out-of-control agencies until they remember who they work for. Not the global elites, not the climate lobby, the American people. Folks, if we don't get a grip on this regulatory state, we're not going to recognize our country in a few years. Energy prices are already through the roof. Our grid is overloaded, and families are struggling to put food on the table. Meanwhile, the Biden regime is marching forward at the fastest regulatory pace in history. Here's my take. Congress needs to take back its authority. No more blank checks to the EPA. No more bureaucrats legislating from behind closed doors. If a regulation is going to cost Americans their jobs, their homes, or their futures, it better go through the people's representatives. Period. And to Representative Boebert, keep fighting. We need more voices in Congress who will stand up to the unelected state and demand accountability. If you agree, hit that like button and share this video. Subscribe for more breakdowns, because I promise you, the mainstream media won't show you this side of the story. Let's take our country back, one truth at a time. God bless you, God bless our energy workers, and God bless America.